Hi there, this is Lina Orlando, and welcome to another episode of Align with Lina. I know I haven't done one of these in quite a little while because, well, as you know, if you're following me, I've been doing a lot of my own soul searching, and recently moving to Colorado has had me take a little step back. But once I decided that I was going to start doing these interviews again, I decided to reach out to somebody that I haven't known for a very long time, but for the short period of time that I've known him, I have grown to not only love him as a brother in Christ, as a holy brother, as A Course in Miracles would say, but as someone that I am respecting for the level of courage and the level of faith that he exhibits. Not only does he talk it, but he walks it. So please help me to welcome Rob Cunningham. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm really looking forward to this.
Yes, well, I am going to say a little bit about how I met you. I am just, as those of you who know me pretty well know, that I began to shift my perspectives around politics because of what is happening not only in the world, but I became a grandmother. And I want to make sure that I do everything in my power for my grandson to experience a country that is founded on the principles that are in our Declaration of Independence in our Constitution. And for me, I needed to find a community who would support that in the midst of all the craziness that was going on in the world. Not only starting with the COVID story, but the elections, the rampant craziness that was going on. And I found a wonderful group in my background, or in my backyard where I was living in the Marietta area. And I got connected with you, Rob, and your wife, and the amazing group that you guys had created that were giving a safe space for people to begin to question things. And one of the first things that I took away from my initial gathering was this is a whole bunch of courageous people, because they were coming from all walks of life and were willing to stand up for something that everybody found to be truth in such a deep place within us, and that is our God-given freedom. Not
Mhm.
only God-given from all of us created free, but it's part of what makes this American country so wonderful. And I actually came here from the Dominican Republic. Now, I'm a US citizen because I was born here, but my mom is Dominican. So she came to the US to have her babies because my dad's American. But I grew up in the Dominican from the 3 months old till I was almost 15. I grew up in a Latin country. And I can tell you that I came to live here after 15 with a great appreciation for what this country was founded on, because my Dominican country is not founded on these principles that I have come to cherish. So having a community that stood for that, it was like, oh my gosh, I met my family. So
Mm.
one of the saddest things about moving from Atlanta was having to not be present there on those regular meetings. But anyways, I'm staying connected, as you know, through our Telegram group. But I'm so grateful to have you come and chat with us. Tell us a little bit about you so that my audience gets to know you.
Well, let's see. I'm a Georgia native, born in a small little town in Tifton, Georgia, and lived there till I was 3, and then moved to Marietta
Okay.
and went to Walton High School right there in your backyard. And after that, I went and played a little football at University of Georgia and studied management information systems. Um, After college, I went to the Air Force and became an instructor pilot in the Air Force, flew in Desert Storm, got out after 7 years, went to fly for the airlines for a couple of years until there was a little economic downturn, and about 500 of me and my fellow pilots were furloughed. So I changed careers, went to Merrill Lynch, did investment banking, I worked at Smith Barney. I worked at a mortgage company with private mortgage banking for high net worth individuals, and then met my beautiful bride, and we started a company together about 21 years ago, and still have that today. It's a business development, leadership, coaching, training organization in the financial services space. So that's a little bit of background about me.
Awesome. So then let's start the conversation with what had you, you and your wife open up your home and start allowing people to come in and have conversations at a time that was, the world was in chaos, and so many that were speaking about certain things were being censored. To me, like I said, I thought it was quite courageous of you guys to host these conversations and let people begin to share what it was that they were feeling. They couldn't stay outside those doors, but yet we could come into your home and speak freely about them.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, literally, we had no idea that it would create such a mushroom cloud, if you will, of attraction. You put it out there in the universe, and sometimes it just comes back to you in a gale force winds. But bottom line is, we knew we were being lied to. We
Mhm.
just knew for a fact we were being lied to. We were. It was a combination of being sick and tired of being sick and tired, refusing to take a knee, um, to act as if the emperor has no clothes, but he's actually got the little kids book.
Yeah.
We know this is wrong. This is a lie. This is unbelievable. They're leading us to some place for their benefit, not ours. And I'm not going to stand on the sidewalk and talk about how lovely the garment is on the emperor as he comes down the street when he's buck naked and 400 pounds overweight. I'm not going to sit there and deny reality. And, I fought for our country. I've flew, 38 combat missions. And I have two daughters. They were young at the time. They were still young today. If not us, who? And that's just kind of my nature. And that was my wife's nature. And we were so very equally yoked and so very blessed to not, be at different points of strength and leadership and confidence and courage and willingness to speak the truth and damn the torpedoes. I mean, truth is truth, and political correctness is not kind of in my vocabulary. And so, I've got the battle scars to prove that. But I wear them as a badge of honor.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So, when we talked about having this conversation, we said, well, let's have a topic and let the topic be courage. But what does courage mean to you? Because if we can establish that, we can go lots of places from.
Yeah. An absence of fear.
Mhm.
I mean, if you want to look at the law book, and when I say the law book, I mean the Bible. I mean, the single number one most oft repeated thing, ironically, 365 times, is fear not.
Mhm. Yeah. I
We've had a president to say the only thing to fear is fear itself. Fear is a mental construct more than it is anything else. And a fear of loss, or a fear of shame, or a fear of guilt, or a fear of going to jail if I don't pay my tax, whatever the fear is, fear of being kicked out of the social circle, fear of not conforming, fear of asking too many questions, fear, 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 fear. And maybe, I think that if we want to know who controls us in any shape, form, or fashion, just look at who you're not allowed to criticize.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so I would define courage as going back to my background is Latin. And so I love looking at the roots of words, and
Mm.
so much of it comes from the Latin language. So when I look at the word courage, I used to think I was courageous because I would do all kinds of things like what was that called? Hand gliding, jump coming off of a mountain and gliding with nothing holding me except, this parachute that wasn't guaranteed it was going to hold me, and all kinds of other things that I thought were courageous until I really began to look at the word. And this happened when I was going through my spiritual awakening. And I one day looked at the word courage, and from the Latin word, the word cur means heart. So growing up Spanish, corazón, heart, coraje, courage, and Spanish all come from the root word courage. And then I saw, okay, well, what is the rage part? Because if the cur is the heart, what's the rage? Why is rage there? And I began to feel, okay, until I begin to activate in me a level of rage that connects with my heart to move me past limitations, I wasn't going to be engaging in what I then discovered in the Sanskrit word for courage is saka. And that stands for truth and reality. So I began to kind of put together, okay, so if I'm using my heart and I have rage and I want to know truth and I want to experience reality, what does that mean? And it began to be applied in my life when I finally had the courage to question all of the fears that I had grown up with around God. Because when my mom died, I had this terror that I was going to go to hell because I grew up Catholic and that's where you go. Everybody goes there, even though, there's all kinds of stories that they tell you that you've been cleansed of your sins and you accept this and that and you're saved. It was everywhere you turned, you were going to go to hell because you were a sinner. I kissed boys when I was really young. I had sex before I got married. I knew I was going to be a sinner. I was destined to go. So this fear got activated in me after my mom passed because I knew her and I knew a lot of things she had done. And I was like, I'm going to go where she is and I'm going to end up in this eternal rotisserie. And it began to make me question, is it really real that there is this thing called hell afterwards? And Rob, I enter into the most beautiful journey to discover God. I mean, I was welcomed. I was loved up by Jesus, by the presence of the consciousness of Jesus. And it was so amazing. And that's when I began to understand what courage was about. And it said, we need to start a rage in your heart. You need to begin to actively question everything that you believe. Because to me, the opposite of courage was to be complicit, because a coward is complicit, is complacent, complies. And I thought my whole life, that was me. I lived inside of a complacent, complicit world. And when I began this journey to question my beliefs around God, oh my gosh, I began to understand what courage was about. And so that's my experience. When did you begin to feel that you were a courageous person, and how did that show up in your life?
Wow, that's a great question. If you don't mind, before I answer that question, I'll put it on pause. I just want to comment on a couple of things that you said there. I mean, I love the word cur, meaning heart, and rage, meaning, rage, but I see potentially being a raging fire, a
Mhm.
fire
I
in
love
your heart to
that.
learn truth, not a rage from an anger, but a
Yeah.
rage from an intensity, a heat, a passion for love, because that is our essence, right? And the heart is the physical representation of the spiritual, essence of who we are. So courage, heart fire, a fire for truth. What is love?
And
What
that's really what it was, not a rage that I was going to go out there angry, but it was letting this rage, this energy activate.
a flame. Yes.
Great.
The
Thank you for
right.
saying that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um, and I love words. I love dictionaries. I love to tear words apart. I love Latin. I remember being able to do advanced grammar and doing some Latin and Greek studies, even back in 79 and 80, which in high school back and then, all of that type of powerful knowledge is stripped out of our systems today. It's stripped out of the education factories, and it is, we're enslaved by our lack of knowledge,
Yeah.
and the other side knows that. The beast system, whatever you want to call it, the systems that have intricately woven together in a brilliant fashion, money and law and ordinances and codes and health and education and justice and media and all of these systems, if we really were to think about it, they're designed to keep us in the 3D, and they're designed to have our emotions govern us instead of us govern our emotions.
Yeah.
Right? And it's so easy to divide and conquer people that are living like a pinball in a pinball machine. If your emotions are hate and rage and jealousy and guilt and competition and more money and status and girls and gold and property and and what people think of me and hairstyle and body type and all gender identity, I mean, that is an endless, non-ending pinball machine, and you ain't the one that's pushing the levers on the side that's making the ball go everywhere. Somebody else is pushing the lever. You're just the ball in that stupid machine.
Yeah.
And they're giving you rules about religion and whether you get fall. Look, from my understanding and study, the two institutions that Jesus held the highest level of contempt for was the church and law, because back then it was one and the same. The
Yeah.
Pharisees were the law, and the law, represented the Pharisee, and they controlled it all. And the other was the money changers. Okay, so banks and lawyers.
Yeah.
People would find it unbelievable that they got into the research and found out that our banking system is owned offshore, and our legal system, the bar, the British Accreditation Registry, is owned by the City of London in the same sovereign 1 square mile foreign territory, where our attorneys pledge an allegiance to a private unionized membership group known as the British Accreditation Registry in London, not our Constitution.
And that, when I heard you share that, I knew, my little doggy back there moving around, I knew that it takes a lot of courage to speak up and speak to those things, because part of the courage that we have to find is to break through the compliance, being complicit through our agreements with these systems that have turned humanity into cowards. And this part of the courage was, yeah, lighting up a fire inside of me to burn off really what did not belong, what is not of God,
right
placed in my heart.
Exactly. And so how do they weaponize fear? They weaponize fear by having us just accept tradition, trust other people. And when you really begin to analyze words and think of the ways in which the word is perverted to lock us into our stay in your lane, do what you're told, that's above your pay grade, don't ask that question. I mean, the difference between trust and truth is night and day.
It sure is.
It's night and day. Trust is dependent on the actions of another. I trust I'll get a good haircut. I trust the babysitter will take care of my child. I trust the banker won't steal my money. That is subjective and requires a third-party intervention, which people are always going to let you down. They're always going to disappoint. It's something that you hope for, but hope is not a guarantee. It's just a hope. Truth is.
Yeah.
1 + 1 = 2. Fire is hot. Forgiveness is unhealthy. Cigarette smoking is bad for your lungs. I mean, reciprocity is a law. Gravity is a law. Truth is. Trust is subjective, right? And yet when you weaponize trust, or you force us to outsource everything in our life to a trusted third party, That's where the mold happens. That's where the exploitation happens. That's where the manipulation happens in that third part. Well, I'm not responsible for that anymore. It's not my fault. It's his fault. It's her fault. It's everybody's fault except my fault. Well, that's no way to live. How do I have any kind of control over my life and my destiny if everything is outsourced and nothing's my fault? It's everybody else's responsibility, but the responsibility is being programmed by an entity that's not me, and it's certainly not God.
Yeah. But
So
what,
I have a non-God collective telling me what I can and can't do. I'm out of control of it because I've been trained to outsource everything in my life. So everybody then gets to be victim. And then it's just what level of victimhood do you get to declare? You
yeah,
know, if nothing is my fault, then it's, you know, I have no responsibility. And if I'm not able to respond, which is what responsibility means, it means, do you have the ability to respond? Well, if everything is somebody else's fault, then I have no responsibility, which means I'm disabled in my response. And that's exactly where those who want to divide and conquer want us all to be, is disabled from truth.
yes. And when I began to learn truth, to discover truth, and I began to trust the truth. And when those two came together, and my trust was just only in what was true, what is true, that passes, the test of time, that it is, as you said, things began to change. But it took a lot of courage for me to want to know the truth, because my entire life I had been operating with indoctrination, which
Right.
is
All
different
of us have
perception. Every
not
bit.
not a one of us is clean of that. Every one of us has a level of detox that we have to do because we've been dogma, indoctrination, programming, television. You know, I tell people this all the time. When you start to look at it, it's so invigorating. The freedom is so invigorating when you realize that five companies, five companies that are part of the BlackRock and the Vanguard entity own over 90% of every media, website, social media, news, magazine, information providing service in the world, then you will realize nothing's really going to come out of those boxes, the television box, the websites, the magazines, the whatever, unless it benefits them.
Exactly.
It's not coming out of those machines to wake us up so we realize how we're being stolen or deceived or misled, or they're trying to get us to a certain destination. It's for their benefit, not ours.
Yeah.
And if you understand that, we'll never know exactly the complexities of the neurolinguistic programming and the deception and the words and the lies of omission. I tell people this all the time. A chocolate chip cookie with 1% dog crap in it tastes like dog crap, or 1% cyanide will kill you. They can tell you 99% truths and this leave 1% out. You
Yeah.
change one word in a paragraph and the verdict is guilty instead of not guilty, with
Yeah.
one word, And so all we need to really understand is it likely or possible or even probable I'm being misled by a bunch of institutions that have their best interest in heart and not mine? Probably.
Well,
So I wouldn't anyone want to walk down a terribly dark, dangerous alley at 3 a.m. in the morning by myself, because I know there's danger lurking somewhere and there's a high probability I'm going to get hurt. I take that same attitude with the television set. I'm going to get hurt. I don't know why, where, or who, or how, and I may be completely, they may have cut me 6 times and I didn't even feel it,
yeah.
but I got cut.
I gave up TV like 10 years ago.
Right,
And it was one of the best things that I did because as I was moving through this journey and having the courage to question everything that I believed was true, was reality, I had to detox from the first thing that was easy, and it was just don't push that button on, just leave
right.
it off. And it's amazing not being influenced by that constant nonsense that comes in through these TV shows and just even movies to a certain extent. I basically had so much more free time to immerse myself in curiosity about everything. And that, one of the moments, and I do want to find out from you, what's the point when you realized you were courageous? And, what was one of the most courageous things you did? Because to me, the most courageous thing that I did was to be willing to come to know the truth about God. I didn't want to know it from a book. I personally believe God is too big to fit into one book.
Yes.
It's an infinite, eternal presence. How can it just be in one book that was given to us 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago? And interestingly enough, a book, Course in Miracles, as I mentioned earlier, helped me really question all of the indoctrination that I had received about God, because it took me to what I did remember from my Catholic upbringing was that Jesus taught that basically one rule, one law, kind of broke it down into two parts for us because we were a little thick-headed. But if you love God, you love your neighbor as yourself. And as I began to realize, well, if that was the essence of the teachings, how has it gotten so convoluted? And through, again, A Course in Miracles, I began to realize that I grew up fearing God. And Jesus is telling me to love God. So I had so many beliefs between me and God that were layers of obstacles for me to really come to know what God is. And once I began to really open up to what it means to have the kingdom of heaven in me, to realize that we're all created equal, all created by the same, the one creative source, I began to realize, well, if we are made in the image of that which is love, how did we get so far away from that in this world where we kill one another, where we lie and steal and hurt one another? And my goodness, that sent me on another journey. But I had no idea that when I began to question this idea of God being loving versus a God that I should fear, it just opened up a Pandora's box, and it has turned my life upside down, but in a good way, in a really good way, because it's helped me understand how easily we're manipulated when we don't know the truth of who we are.
Yes.
And it
Yes.
takes courage to discover our truth. I mean, it was scary questioning my beliefs. I mean, sometimes I was terrorized questioning what my mother said, my father said, my grandmother said, my school said, my government said, my religion said, the doctor said. It took a lot to move through the.
And what you did is you exercised the single most powerful force in the world, and that is the power of choice.
Mhm.
You did not consent or just accept or just conform or just trust. You made the decision, you made a choice to seek truth. And in seeking that, you began to ask questions about the institutions. And you began to say, well, wait a minute. Jesus took the 10 commandments down to two. And he said, just love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and love your neighbors yourself. That's it. Just do those two. Knowing, here's one of the things my minister tells me: laws are only created to convict us. What does that mean? Knowing that as humans, with all of the issues going on in the world and all of our frailties and all of our less than perfection, no matter how perfect we think we are, no matter how deeds based we are, no matter how many checklists that we run, whether there's 14,000 Catholic rules or 12,000 Methodist rules or 16,000 Jewish rules, and I'm either good or bad, and I'm keeping score and I'm checking the list all the time. We can't keep two.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
the hell are we going to keep 14,000? Okay. So, but what does that, so the essence of that, what that tells us is, if we can't keep two, then we need something other than laws for our strength and our power and our ability to thrive and have the power and the standing and the authority and the inheritance and the abundance and the grace and the humility, and to live on earth as it is in heaven through an ongoing relationship, not a series of laws.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
laws are checklists to point us to that point where we make the choice that I can't do it academically. I can't do it in my mind. It's got to be supernatural, beyond a formula, a checklist, a book, a rosary, candles, incense, whacking myself on the back, sacrificial lambs. I mean, it
Yeah.
it's not a deeds thing, it's a spirit thing. And until we now it's so hard when we have grown up in a system of trust and tradition, and we're all just expected to go along and get along. And Lane, would you please stop asking those questions about inconsistencies and hypocrisies in the church? We're just trying to get through here so we can get to lunch. Okay, 30 minutes in the church. We're going to go have some good, fried chicken for lunch. Stop asking so many questions, because they haven't asked them. They
Yeah.
don't want to know. And if they were to get the truth of the answer, it might rock their world. And they're afraid of their world being rocked. So it's a lot easier to ask you to shut up than it is to maybe rock their world.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, when I began to go through this process, and it activated curiosity, that rage in me, that fire that got lit up, it was really all about curiosity. And it became really clear. As a matter of fact, in the course that I was given to teach, that's the first step. To be able to move out of the disconnect from who we are, is you got to get curious. And in that curiosity,
Yes.
we have to ask questions. And the asking questions, yes, is very inconvenient to it's inconvenient to two people: the ones who don't know the answer, and the ones who do know the answer but don't want you to know the answer. And I began to realize that most of the people that I was surrounded by that were experts, especially in religion, they didn't know the answers.
Right.
And if I was to escalate and begin to want to know higher, I began to realize, oh, people who went to the authorities and asked questions, well, they got crucified, they got burnt at the stake, something happened to them, they disappear. Um, it was really, it's been a fascinating journey. But the most important thing I would say about all of this is it has brought me to a place of such peace in my heart, because I know that no matter what we do on this physical plane, I am safe because God created me eternal as itself. My body might perish, but what I am in eternity, this is what life is all about. It's not the physical life, but it's the eternal life. In my perspective, what I've learned is that I'm safe no matter what. And Course in Miracles has taught me that we are here to wake up while we are in this physical form and create what the Course calls a happy dream. Because to have an experience of being a human, in a way, it's a dream, because you have to forget, you have to not remember your eternal connection to God, which most of the church is really quick to want to help us forget, so that we just become only humans. But
and and dependent on the institution,
totally, totally.
dependent on the whole business model is constructed around the guy on the stage being able to bench press 450 pounds and you only being able to bench press 50 pounds. That's where the clicks and the likes and the seats and the board and the youth ministry and the collection plate comes from, is a much stronger top-down pyramid
Yeah.
than a bottom-up group of warriors. All
Yeah,
right.
it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And what is so exciting for me as a grandmother is seeing so many people beginning to question and just question everything. Because until we all arrive to the same answer, which to me is just to come to know the truth that is true, always come to know what God says is true, what God declared true, the laws of truth, the laws of God, which are the same for everybody. That's what's so amazing about this journey, is it led me to find that we're all at the core the same. What makes us different are the beliefs that we hold. What makes us different is perspectives, the thought systems that block us from knowing the truth of who
But
we
it's
are.
also, but sometimes people will misinterpret those words that you just said. And what I want to clarify or edify a little bit is the essence of life is life, but the purpose is as infinite as the creator is. I mean, I don't care how well I know Christ, I'm not going to sing and dance on stage. I'm not going to play for the NBA. I'm just not going to do it. We're all going to have different talents and gifts and purposes and missions and strength and skills and weaknesses, and the desire and that burning courage in our heart to find what we love is synchronized with the purpose for why we're here. And when we find that purpose, we may be the best accountant ever known to man. We may be Albert Einstein. We may be Tiger Woods. We may be the best mom ever. We may be the best grandfather. Just like there's billions of fish and species and wildlife and plants and flowers and grass. Yeah, the life force that makes all that happen is the same life force, but it's infinitely different. So
Yeah,
it doesn't mean that we have to be conformed and all be alike. And we ought to go, rituals and
absolutely.
beads and candles and
Yeah.
speak the same language and speak and laugh the same at the same jokes. And no, it doesn't mean conformity. The ultimate in diversity
Mhm.
is diversity of expression once we find our purpose.
Yeah, well, that's what makes to me God infinite. It is infinite and it expresses
Infinite,
infinitely.
infinite.
Yes. And back to A Course in Miracles, when I began to learn about happiness, and the Course says that God gave us one purpose, and it was to be happy. To be happy, being who you are, and exactly as you said, bringing all your talents, bringing all of the different ways that we are endowed with ideas and gifts and talents and whatever that might be. Which when I tied that, well, go ahead, because I want to tie that
Yeah.
back to the
So
declaration.
let's connect what you just said. I love this back and forth because you said when it unleashes all of this infinite power, creativity, awareness, and purpose inside you. So who would be on the opposite side of that when you know? Who might not want you to know? Who might not be able to control or confine or regulate or harvest you on their farm if you found out who you are and you did the work to get the knowledge of the laws and the knowledge of your purpose and the knowledge of how to have a relationship with the most infinite creative force in the world. If you know that and you understand it, which means you stand under the authority of the creator
Yeah.
instead of standing under the authority of the government or the church or the sheriff or the principal or whoever. There's this competition between the beast system and the creator. And
It's
there, and so if you think about everything has to be engineered to a way where you get parts and pieces and snippets. You got to fit into the jigsaw puzzle in a way that benefits the top of the pyramid, not in the way that edifies God. We can't let there be 8 billion people out there trying to find their purpose. How are we going to organize that? You
I
know,
know.
who said you were supposed to organize that? Who made you God of the world?
Yeah.
You know, it,
But that goes back to if our only purpose, again, according to Course in Miracles, is that we be happy. Happy people don't hurt anybody. Happy people mind their own business when it's true happiness coming from within because you're fulfilling your purpose. You're doing what makes you sing. You're doing what allows you to be contributing and to be sharing and to be caring and to be part of the community, to be part of the family, because it really truly is to me, humanity is a family. It's we're all little cells of the same body of Christ or God or whatever you want to call it. We are all one when we understand what we're made of. But when I began to understand about the purpose being happiness, it began to click in my mind. Well, the Declaration of Independence also said that we're supposed to pursue happiness, and that's when I began to kind of veer off from my spiritual path and began to look into um, uh, politics and look at really what this country was founded on. And Rob, that's when I went down the rabbit hole of seeing how these men who really gave their lives, gave everything for this country to have those documents, founding fathers, founding documents. And I realized, oh my gosh, they knew the same God that I came to know, that had me remember that not only are we created equal, but we have eternal life to use it in this lifetime in a way that we experience liberty and happiness.
but they also knew the beast system at play in the earth. They knew that they were
Yeah,
signing a Declaration of Independence and a death certificate at the same time,
yeah,
because their willingness to challenge authority, control, power, might, taxation, regulation, obedience, taking a knee, saying yes, sir, shutting up and doing as you're told. They wanted to leave the animal farm, and they were brave enough with enough faith to sign a document that they also knew would probably be their death warrant, because the nature of men that will go after power and greed and worship money.
yeah.
I mean, the book, as I understand it, said a lot of people don't understand this, but or know this or been taught it. And literally, I didn't know it until the last 3 years. It blew my mind, because I had my theories as to why, you know, a man that is in more rap music, more rap songs than any other single man in history, a man that is in international hospitality the world over, beauty pageants and golf courses and hotels and casinos, a man that had the number one television program for 8 years in a row, number one, a man that donated primarily to Democrats in the beast of the liberal city of New York City, a man that went to the Clintons' wedding and then donated to Democrats for all they were, that lived in a liberal area, but was a generally kind of common sense businessman, practical guy. One of the most popular men on earth, who has an in international hospitality, hotels, casinos, the people business the world over, comes down an escalator to run for president as a racist, homophobic, anti-Jewish son of a bitch. Get him. How did an escalator ride turn a man that was incredibly popular on the left, incredibly popular with Democrats, incredibly popular in New York City, wildly successful in media, in 24 hours become a racist homophobe?
All right, so you're taking us down a rabbit hole, and
Well,
he is,
but my point being is, to the extent that the founding fathers signed a document of independence, he wanted to be independent, and they can't have you be independent. They need you controlled.
yeah.
And when it was apparent he wasn't controlled by the left or the right, he was a very independent man. He had 16 people on the right running against him, and then all the Democrats running against him, and the entities and the powers that be said, whoever that collective is, get him.
Well,
Right?
I
And,
was going to ask you.
and so the getting, he signed his He signed his virtual death certificate by agreeing to go down and run for an office without agreeing to take a knee and conform to being owned by one party or
Well, I
one
was going to
institution.
ask you to give me people that you thought were courageous, and Trump is one of the top of my list. But because you took us down this way, let me tie this back to my when I was led towards understanding those founding documents, and specifically that part about all men are created equal, um, endowed by God with the same inalienable rights. When I read that, and really from the perspective that I was coming from, and I realized that that was only 200 and some odd years ago, it had me question, why do we have to say that when it was already established for us 2000 years ago? When it was already established that we are all created equal, that God is within each and every one of us. And that sent me down the rabbit hole of discovering, okay, what was Jesus fighting 2000 years ago? He said we could only have one master, and there was only two options: God or money, money, power. And
40% of the Bible, 41, 42% of the Bible talks about money. How
really,
about that? It talks more about money and materialism than it does love, marriage, forgiveness, children, parenting, worship. Think about this, guys. 41 or 42% of the Bible covers money because Jesus was aware and men knew that if they're going to govern us by our emotions and our five senses, 3D senses, we will money and materialism is the only thing that requires us to worship it like we worship God.
yeah,
I mean, I remember seeing my parents and grandparents, walking around. It's almost like they've got a spreadsheet over their head everywhere they're going. It's a P&L. Can I afford that? Can I not afford that? How's my stock market doing? Is it going up? Is it going? Is that too much? Is that too little? Can I buy that? Can I not buy it? Fear and love, happiness and success is what's my taxes due? Did I pay that debt? Everything is a spreadsheet. If we thought, if we ever calculated how much time do we spend working for money, think about money, take home pay, 401k, investments, portfolio, risk management, all the things that we're doing, all the things that we're doing. What have we spent that much time vested in a relationship of God, and we worship love and power and money and authority and standing and inheritance and love and grace and our purpose, and we actually had the laws of reciprocity. If the most powerful, wealthiest creator in the world is our Father, our inheritance ought to be pretty damn fat, don't you think? But if we don't know what our inheritance is, if we don't know who our Father is, but we're spending all our time going after that $68,000 a year job and net trying to get enough money and doing that, and we're having to control and follow the rules and do the DEI classes and say all the right things and say everybody's pronoun correctly, or I'm going to get fired. If I get fired, I won't get that house that I really need. I need that. But I mean, it's one connected
it
ball
is.
of controlling bullshit.
Yeah, it is. It's
It's
one
the
jumbled
it's
up.
it's the matrix.
Yeah, it
And
is.
until we see the matrix, and by the way, the documentary, the Matrix movie is a documentary, not a movie.
Yeah.
You need to look at it from the
Yep.
standpoint of seeing the world, the people, the conformity, the threats, the powers, and who's awake and who's not, and who's just kind of going through the motions until their time runs out, and who's awake to their spiritual essence,
Mhm.
and who wants to get rid of those that are awake to the spiritual essence, because they don't want my virus of spiritual awakening contaminating too many other people, because then they got a problem on their hands.
Exactly.
We can't control a whole bunch of people that are damn awake, so we can't have a great awakening.
Yeah.
Call in the COVID shots. I mean,
But it is, all of these things do tie together,
they do.
because back to the Course in Miracles, it taught me that we have one problem, and it's the authority problem, and there's only one solution, and that's to get right with the one authority. And once we get right with the one authority, everything falls into place. But if we are not aligned with the one authority, God being our ultimate authority, which the Course equates God and love as being one,
Right.
then we will be controlled by external authorities, like you were saying. When I was going through my divorce, um, with my husband after my kids' dad, that marriage, actually, that divorce was a beautiful experience because it was just so loving the way that we went ahead and released each other from that agreement. But with my next husband, oh my goodness, I got to see, it took a lot of courage for me to move through that particular divorce, because for him, money was his ultimate authority. That's he identified that way. And I had to see where my self-worth and my net worth had gotten kind of jumbled up. And I had to pull all of those things
Strange.
apart.
Yeah.
Absolutely, to come back to my inner authority. And it was one of those beautiful lessons that I had to go through that experience to just see how we have sold our souls to money, how we are so easily controlled by money. And that is, I mean,
Well,
we,
see, there's a spiritual economy and there's a man's economy, and we're not allowed to know these laws. We're not. Why does the Bible even talk about gold and silver and diamonds and rubies and explain the wealth and the riches of heaven in such an elaborate way? If a God of abundance doesn't want us to be abundantly fulfilled, it's not that we seek the abundance and then hopefully God comes with it. We seek God, and then whatever comes with it is what comes with it. Seeking God doesn't mean, oh God, I'm going to end up in a Buddhist monk somewhere. I'm going to be in a Tibetan mountain. I'm going to have to go sell everything and be a overseas missionary. That religious mindset puts such shackles on God as to what God would have us do, how he would have. There's 8 billion people on this planet to influence, and we're going to influence them in the fields every day. We're going to influence them through serving dinner, through driving by in a car, through helping them build a house or fix a radiator, through holding their hand when they're sick. The act of love and kindness and service can take place to entertain a person, to make them laugh, to sorrow, to help them and comfort them in their sorrow. There's a gazillion infinite ways to be the salt and light in an expression of joy and love,
yeah,
that it doesn't require like being a missionary in Colombia. I mean, yet we tell ourselves, oh my God, if I go down that road too
yeah.
much, I'll get all religious and then I'll have to sell everything and I'm just not going to go down that road. Well, that is such a knuckleheaded way of giving yourself a quick, easy out to go, well, I don't really want to do the heavy lifting and ask the really deep questions because I might not like the answer and it might turn my world upside down. So I'm just going to stay in comfortitis and I'm going to stay in my own little world. I'm not going to rock the boat, and I'm just going to, do the best I can.
Absolutely. And I don't know what your time frame is, but we've been going here a little while, so I want to respect your time. But we could chat forever, because to me, it's so important that we be willing to be curious and talk and hear other people's perspectives, because something that you do so well in your program, and I want you to share how people can follow you, is you give sound bites. You give sound bites of information, and I tend to give lots of information at one time. It's just maybe the nature of me being a teacher. But you give sound bites that cause people to think, if they want to, and question things and get curious. But just tell me your time frame, because we'll go at your
Well,
timeline.
I'm fine. I don't have really have anything planned until we got to spend an hour packing. We're leaving in the morning for Florida, but right now the girls are upstairs entertaining themselves. We got 4 girls over here with my 2 daughters, and my wife's doing her thing at her office. So I'm wide open.
Okay, fun, fun. Well, you were talking about, that indoctrination about what religion means and how you're supposed to serve and what makes you a good religious person. I had to work through a lot of that. It was amazing how many limiting beliefs and how many righteous beliefs I had that had me think that I was better than other people because of maybe my religious beliefs, especially once I started moving down this spiritual path. And inside of, to me, one of the most difficult uh, belief systems that we have to be courageous, curious to move through really comes under the religious umbrella because we have complete.
Reli- Religion is sandpaper.
Say more.
It's abrasive. It's caustic. It's divisive. Let me give you an example. There are denomination. The word denomination. Think of this as dem nation. De, denominationality. Denomination. Okay. 41,000 denominations of Christianity alone.
Really, that many?
41,000. Because you don't interpret the verse this way. You don't want to grow as fast as I do. I'm a better leader than you are. You look at my wife the wrong way. Whatever.
Yeah.
But the institution, we split ourselves apart instead of coming together in unity because there's a corporate overlay. There's an institution or corporatization meets the business of religion. And Jesus didn't come to teach a lesson for 41,000. He had the greatest contempt for the religious class. You saw some pious person out on the road praying in public so everybody could see him praying. He's like, dude's got his own reward. He's doing that obviously to showboat. And hell, he's like, whatever he gets out of that, he's got his reward. Okay. But prayer in the hope of public esteem is ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Following all the rules perfectly to make the pastor happy is ignorance. Donating 10% like clockwork because that's what they say you're supposed to do is ignorance.
I fell under that. I followed those rules. I followed those guidelines. I went to, I tested a couple of those different denominations. I mean, growing up Catholic. I didn't
Lots of
really,
rules. My wife was Catholic too, Catholic school.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. We definitely got paddled, sent to the prince or to the, well, I went to a Catholic school with nuns,
My
and
wife did too.
they had the habits. It was really funny. But most of it was just indoctrinating us into fear. And when I came to the US, I lived with a family that they went to a non-denominational church. And the first time I went in there, they were speaking in tongues and talking. It was crazy. I thought that are these people insane? So I started, at a young age, a search, and I tried Methodist and I tried Baptist and I tried no denomination. I tried this, that, or the other. And eventually I settled in a church in Marietta. Well, actually maybe Alpharetta or Roswell. And it felt really comfortable for a while. It felt mostly, I love the music, but oh my goodness, that guilt, if you don't do the 10%, that the shaming and the guilting and the fear, I just had to break away from that. And it was scary breaking away from that. I mean, part of my courage was I had to allow what was being lit up inside of me to light me up and to move me into wanting to know the truth about God. And then looking back and being able to see the business of religion, the indoctrination of religion. I'll tell you one place where it became so clear to me that the dangers of following the authority of religion was during COVID. I saw my spiritual community who believed, that we create our thoughts, create our own reality, that it, you're supposed to be powerful beings. I mean, so much of spirituality is true. However, when they began to follow the rules and were afraid to let people in without masks and shut down when they were told to shut down, I immediately knew, how can anybody whose authority is God bow down to an external authority and you're supposed to be teaching about God and truth and love, and you bow down. And I realized, oh my goodness, this entire religious dogma and control and fear of the government. Well, if you're fearing the government, where's your belief in God? Where is your alliance to God? Where do you stand in saying, okay, well, COVID can be outside, but it's not coming into these doors? Where do we, like Jesus, say, get up and walk and really trust that? It was really, it rocked it rocked, it shaked more structure.
It exposed
Yeah,
religion as a corporation.
it really has, and
What it is.
it's been fascinating to watch. It's just absolutely fascinating to watch. That also began to have me go back, oh wait, our founding fathers wanted us to separate church and state. How are we all of these years later having it be connected? Why is it that the government gets to dictate what happens in the churches? Anyway, so many things to unravel in this crazy story that we keep repeating, expecting a different result. We keep repeating the same insanity, expecting a different result. So, ah, let's talk about some of the people that you find are courageous right now.
Um, well, it's almost simple to find someone that is courageous, that's willing to speak, boldly and bravely, and yet, look, obviously, I think Trump is brave. He's ruined, the amount of hate and assassination attempts for doing. If you took the man out and all the acrimony about the man and just looked at his report card, just looked at the grades alone, divorced the personality from the economy and inflation and crime rates, and Bush Jr. started 2 wars. Obama started 7 wars. Trump started 0. Biden's trying to get us into World War III and blew up Afghanistan and left dead bodies and $85 billion behind. Now he's fighting a proxy war by giving money we don't have to NATO. NATO's giving it to Ukraine, and Ukraine's fighting. And all of our missile and ammunition systems, I'm a military guy, are in Ukraine, which means they're not just like a gun and somebody picks it up and shoots one time. It takes like 60 people to be able to work a sophisticated guidance ammunition satellite system. When you sell a weapons system, it requires specialists, and those specialists only come from America because we built the system. So we've got American combat troops in Ukraine through the money we gave to NATO. We're fighting Russia for ultimate, totally different reasons. But my point being, I guess, is that when you really just look at the report card, stock market, inflation, lowest unemployment among every ethnic demographic group, males, females, Hispanic, Asians, whites, blacks, old, young, male, female, doesn't matter. Low gas prices, no low crime, no wars, housing starts, first time home buyers, everything. It doesn't just mean tweets alone don't justify the level of such vitriolic hatred like we have never seen for a man that's the rapper's most popular rock star hero, and the Democrats and Republicans loved, and the #1 TV show guy, whose rock star gorgeous wife, who speaks 6 languages, is an architect and an engineer, never made the cover of a magazine, but Michelle Obama is the most beautiful woman in the world. There's an institutional problem about the institutional level of organized hatred towards just a man. It's not the man, it's the ideology of the man they could not let get out, because if he infected the world with that mentality, they would lose control. Get him. So I don't think he even understood the level of vitriol and fire and hate and discord, and then anybody in that why would a guy like Rush Limbaugh get a $400 million contract unless the laws of supply and demand kicked in, meaning how was it that there was such only one man courageous enough to speak truths and poke his finger in authority and ask questions to be so vilified, it almost cleared the playing field. So in a law of supply and demand, if there's only one talent or one or two heart surgeons, you're going to pay a lot of money for that heart surgeon, right? I mean, because you need the heart. You know, if there's only one entertainer at that level, because everybody else doesn't have the courage to say it, you get a $400 million contract because you have one hell of an audience. You have 25 million people a week that want to hear what you have to say. But it takes courage to say things that you're not allowed to say.
Yeah.
You know, so look at a Mike Lindell, look at a Tucker Carlson, look at the brilliance of giving the first tranche of truth on Twitter to Matt Taibbi, a man that was an avowed Trump hater.
Yeah.
Yet he went through the documents. He did journalism. He exposed the information through a series of threads. It exploded the narrative of lies coming out of the corporation known as the District of Columbia. And it came from a man who normally was on the exact opposite side of Trump and hated Trump. So then they had to hate him because they couldn't accept the truth. So the liberals had to decide, well, we got to kill him too. Even though they loved him the day before when he was hating Trump.
Exactly. I
You know,
mean,
so
yeah,
it's the fear that we have to do whatever it takes to defend our precious egos from an ego boo-boo, because we might have to humble ourselves and say the words, I was wrong. I got it wrong. I made a mistake. The
yeah,
fear of people admitting that we've been duped. I mean, I'll give you an example. You know, I've learned through banking and through my studies that, you know, there's an old saying, an adage that says all wars are bankers' wars, right? There's a profitability. There's always a narrative that's sold to us, you know, and then we got to go to war, get the bad guys. America's the top cop. We're the world's police force. We'll decide who's good and bad. Once we sell the narrative, go get those, you know, Ruskies or whatever. We jump on our airplanes and we go over there and we spend 20 years in Afghanistan and then we come back, you know, and the military industrial complex makes a lot of money. We kill a lot of people. We put in the central bank where the central bank wasn't before. Maybe we harvest the poppy fields and sell the cocaine, and we fly it in and out of military planes without inspection for 20, whatever. We control economies and money and people, and we get everybody rich, and we're the top cop. Think about how hard it is for me as a that didn't know the game. So I want to do the patriotic duty. I want to serve and protect my country. I go in flight school. I go and fly a bunch of wars and come back, find out I was just a piece of meat to help the bankers make money. And the whole bullshit for going over to war was to, you know, go over there for power and money because Saddam Hussein was gonna, you know, buy oil with gold, and we can't have that. That's a challenge to the petrodollar. You can't be buying and selling oil with gold because that's a competitor to our monopoly king dollar.
yeah.
Oh, and he's got two bad sons too. Let's talk about his sons. Let's get everybody pissed off as we can. Get the band going, guys. Get the war machine going over there, because the stories that they sold us as to why we had to go to war had nothing to do with the reason we went to war. So
Oh,
now I was fortunate enough to come back and, you know, ticker tape parades, and here's a war, and here's a ribbon, and Moe, aren't you good? And wrap the flag around you. All the veterans stand up.
yeah.
What a kabuki theater bullshit that is. You
Yeah.
know, I don't like to stand up because I was used. I went over there under false pretenses. I don't want to be, I'm not a hero. I was a dupe.
Mm.
Okay. And it's
That,
hard for a veteran who's supposed to be, I was a captain and an instructor pilot and an air medal recipient and a dumbass. You know, I mean, we have to admit when we've been had, when we've been conned, when we've been told a lot, when people pee on our leg and tell us it's not pee, it's raining outside.
yeah.
No, you're peeing on my leg, you
And
know, and I got to admit it. You know,
it's been
you
a con game. It's been a
it,
con game
and if
all
we,
the way around.
but what's shocking is the lack of character or strength to admit we were wrong.
Well,
We've been lied to. That all my whole ideology, I'm a Democrat. I've been a Democrat. My mama was a Democrat. My grandparents were Democrats. By God, I'm a Democrat, and I ain't changing.
yeah.
Well, good luck with that. You know.
But, no, but here, what you're pointing to is one of the areas in my field of work as a life coach that every single person, I mean, I'm talking 16 years of experience doing this, a couple thousand people that I have coached. The reason it is so difficult for people to be curious is because we have been indoctrinated in the system of rewards and punishments.
Right.
If you got it right, you've been rewarded. If you get it wrong, you're going to get punished. And to admit that we were wrong feels like a punishment. And we hold on to these experiences from childhood, which is why the school system, especially when you incorporate that with religious kind of school systems, the punishments can be very severe. The shaming in front of the class. I'll tell you, Rob, all of my years in when I do, whether it's individual coaching or my workshops, when you got groups of people together, never, ever, ever does it fail to have at least one teacher in every single person's life that really terrorize them. And now, of course, we'll have the wonderful teachers as well. So there are many great teachers that uplift you. But inevitably, in second and third grade, those are the two most popular grades. Well, fourth grade, some too, but third grade is the most popular grade where somebody was shamed in front of the class, where somebody was needed to do something like a little, oh my goodness, I've had many stories of little boys and little girls, but mostly little boys needing to go to the bathroom and teachers say, no, you're not going to go now. And the little boy in their fear wet themselves right there in front of the class. And what happens? Everybody laughs at them because they were not doing what they were told. So every single person, if we could have the ability to say, listen, being wrong doesn't mean you did anything bad. Being wrong doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. Being wrong means that you didn't get it right, but now this makes you open to learning. I used to tell my kids that there's
It's called growth.
growth.
It's called
Exactly.
growth.
Yes, I told my kids, you don't win or lose, you win or learn.
Right.
And that's all that happens. Because if you win, you already know it. But if you lose, then there's an opportunity to learn something else. But the reason you've got all these veterans, my dad was one of those veterans. He was in the war in I can't remember, Korea, and he was part of that and got all the medals and all that stuff. He would never admit that he had been used by the bankers, by the money system. He would never be able to admit that. And of course, he went to his grave with that, his own belief system. But if he knew that it's okay, Dad, it's okay to let's explore something different. Let's question this a little bit. Let's get curious. Let's kind of figure out who wins. I've heard you say this in some of your talks. Follow the money. If we begin to follow the money, we begin to see how we have all been used primarily because we don't want to be embarrassed in front of others. We don't want to be wrong. We don't want to be shamed. So we do what we think is the right thing. And if it's the right thing to go defend your country at the times that so many, young men and some women are told that you're doing something patriotic, then you think that's the right thing. And some of the really courageous people that I've met are veterans who questioned why they did what they did. I've got a dear, dear friend, somebody that I have the honor of coaching, working through some of the things that he did because he thought that was the right thing to do. And now looking back, he goes, oh my God, I killed innocent people for.
Well, and the thing is when you realize, look, just as objectively as we can, let's just put these facts in a petri dish and look at them, okay, without any emotion. You just say, okay, if a person isn't worshiping God and truly seeking faith, then the other thing they're going to worship is money. money will become their God, because money is a representation of power. And if you have power, you can control, and your ego and everything can take over. But the more power, the more as they say in DC and everywhere, money and power is the ultimate aphrodisiac.
Yeah.
I mean, it attracts people, because you can buy stuff, you can buy the world, and by God, I'm invincible, and it becomes your God. So if you look at the petri dish and you go, okay, if God's not sending us to Afghanistan for 20 years or trying to start World War III, then who is? It's those that worship money, power, and control. So that's what, follow the money means, like, why? Where does that come from? Where's the derivative that say follow the money? Because why? Because all roads lead to Rome. Render unto Caesar that which is right in Rome, the center of power and control and money and taxation. So when you follow the money, you'll find the power source, the motivation, and the control system of which the money comes from. So whoever's going to be profiting from COVID, there were 65 or 70 billionaires, pharma billionaires created in 2 years. Is there an
Insane.
investigation of that? Is there a discussion of that? What if there had been 60 skyscraper architect developers that became billionaires under Trump?
Yeah.
Would there be a discussion then? Would we have a little investigative journalism?
A great point.
More people have died from the vaccine in the age groups of 18 to 34 than we lost in Vietnam. The current young generation has had their own Vietnam with myopia or myocarditis, aneurysms, strokes, heart attacks, advanced stage sudden onset cancer, and died.
Yeah.
18 to 36 years old. This generation has had their Vietnam. The flu, with a 99.99784% survival rate, doesn't cause advanced cancer, myocarditis, heart attacks, strokes, and sudden infant death syndrome or sudden adult death syndrome.
Yeah.
When they just want to make up a cause and make up a thing. There's over 2 million deaths and 2 billion injuries, serious injuries in the world that have come from the vaccine, not from the flu. And it is, we haven't even begun to see the ramifications of now when you start following the money and that scenario and seeing the who, what, when, where, how, and why, we have to question everything. And if the chips fall in a positive way and everything's hunky-dory and Fauci loves God as much as he loves money, and Bill Gates was doing all this for great reasons, and the 60 billionaires are giving half their money to charity because they're just God-loving, faithful, loving spirit beings, wonderful. Let's find out. Oh no, shut up. I'm going to cancel you. Don't ask those questions. Why not?
Yeah. Well, and that's why some of my favorite, most courageous people today are the ones who are willing to ask those questions. They are willing to not just follow what they're told because something inside of them has lit up and they are not going to stop until they discover.
They smell the stench in the air, and they're not going to deny that there's stench in the air.
So let's turn this conversation around and then we'll wrap it up because I do have an appointment here I'm going to have to get to in 20 minutes. But let's leave this on a positive note. What are you feeling really excited about, knowing what you know? Because to me, that's one of the important things is knowing what I know. I am super excited about the future.
I am too.
And I know that we are at a moment in time when we're in the process of a bifurcation. Those who are aligning to the truth, those who really are courageous, we're creating a whole new earth. And those who are succumbing to this, they have their own journey to continue. Again, the teachings of A Course in Miracles have given me such peace and the realization God is with each and every one of us and waits for each and every one of us for whenever we're ready to have our prodigal son and daughter moment. So let's talk about what you're excited about because of what you know, because nobody that knows that has opposed, blocked, created obstacles to discovering this, none of those people are happy. They're scared, they're worried, they're concerned. But everybody who has the information that you and I have, and more, feel such peace and hope. Tell me about your hope and your peace.
What I love more than anything is, people will say this all the time, it is the greatest time in history to be alive. We are seeing an awakening on such a mass scale on every country in the world like never before. And we're waking up to the con, we're waking up to the institutionalized deception and control and control and the programming that has been very specific and very intricate and very interconnected from, I mean, thousands of years of study from the Venetians and study from the, Vatican and study from legal systems and law systems and history and perversions of history and omissions of history. But the contract law and admiralty law, all of these systems that have been woven together for the benefit of the control matrix, and we'll call it the beast system, haven't happened by accident. They've been intentionally engineered and stitched together, and all of that's falling apart. It's like a house of cards that has been in a monsoon, and you're dropping rocks on it, and the house of cards is just about to collapse.
Yeah.
And if you really want to know what the motivation for all of the egregious chaos, wars, civil divisions, gendering, shootings, open borders, 15 boosters, Ukraine insanity, oil prices, mandatory electric cars everywhere. Global warming is going to kill us if COVID doesn't kill us, if the Russians don't kill us, if the Republicans don't kill us. I mean, it's fear after fear after fear after fear. Get a knee, get a knee, get a knee, do what I tell you to do. And people are going, bullshit. We're finally on to, oh my God. And if they will lie to us about a virus released from a lab with a mandatory shot where they're the same patented owners that owned the testing equipment, that owned the vaccine, that owned the PPE mask and everything, that owned the virus itself, profited from this 10 years before it was ever released. They owned and licensed through the patent office first of all, you cannot patent something that's from nature.
Yeah.
You can only patent something that has been manufactured or constructed. You can't patent a pine tree. You can't patent, grass. You can't patent oxygen. Okay. You can only patent something that you've made. So the fact that the COVID-19 virus, mRNA vaccine, the PPE, all this stuff was manufactured and there's a patent in the patent office means this was all planned. It's not from nature. And it created billionaires. And if they're willing to kill or attempt to kill 1 billion or 2 billion people, what moral red line will these assholes not cross?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, they'll lie to you about that, but not about Trump. Oh, they'll lie to you about that, but not about taxes or not about it. No. We'd never lie to you about. No, if they're willing to go to this such level of mass hysteria and mass extermination to maintain their cartel and their monopoly of power and money systems and control, we're in a pretty bad state of affairs, but we outnumber them. So what am I happy about? Their system's imploding. We're about to cross the Red Sea. Their entire monetary system is going to explode. A brand new one is on the verge right now. It's already being turned on this weekend as we speak. A brand new neutral, distributed, transparent, fast and free monetary system that allows us to be our own banker and control our own assets without a Wells Fargo or a Chase Manhattan or a Bank of America or any third party intermediary going in there with fees and fines and float and forgery, stealing our wealth from us and telling us what we can and can't do. I'm not talking about CBDCs.
Oh, yeah.
The narrative of the beast system is that we're going to have super beast 2.0 with AI built in and CBDCs. Y'all go ahead and take a knee, go ahead and surrender. It's a fait accompli. It's already done. They're doing it over in China. They're lying about how it's working in China. They're lying about its adoption rate. The Chinese people hate it. Just because it's on CNBC doesn't mean it's true. They don't have the technical sophistication, capabilities, wherewithal, or entrepreneurial sophistication. This is a group of people that spent over $1 billion on the Obamacare website that never turned on and never worked. You think they can create a digital monetary system to connect every country in the world when 85% of the countries are aligned with the BRICS nations and don't want to have anything to do with the Federal Reserve central bank system? They're lying to us about CBDCs to try to scare us into submission.
Yeah.
It
Oh,
cannot happen. It will not happen. But they're also lying they're benefiting by scaring people about the CBDC so people don't invest in this next generation architecture, the next generation digital products that will allow us to freely interoperate person to person, point to point, company to company, entity to entity, nation to nation with any other. We are going to be able to conduct fast and free and cheap and efficient commerce with direct point to point, person to person, without these third party intermediaries the world over.
yeah.
Without an intermediary getting their fees. They're 7 or 9% every time money's moved from point A to point B. They're losing control over what is actual money, what is actual assets, and without that control, that money, they don't have the power to keep the control beast system operating.
Mm-hmm.
So we're about to have a level of freedom free from the corrupting influences of concentrated wealth in the hands of assholes. I don't know why today that's my favorite word, but I could come up with a lot worse words for these people for what they've done to our children and our communities and our marriages and our neighbors and our institutions. I mean, I like to remind people that money is nothing but a system of trust. People simply have to come to a consensus and agree, whether it's copper or coffee beans or silver or paper dollars or tea leaves or tea bags, whatever the system, the culture, the community, the world decides will be money, it becomes a mutual exchange of value, a store of value, a currency that allows us to conduct trade so we don't have to carry stuff around it. But there's supposed to be that inherent in that system of trust, though, there has to be honesty and transparency. There needs to be soundness. There needs to be settlement. There needs to be fairness. There needs to be full disclosure. Trust must be a part of the money system. Well, our U.S. King dollar is supposed to be backed by the full faith and credit of the United States. We have no credit and there is no faith because they're a bunch of liars. So one of the reasons the U.S. dollar is losing its status as world reserve currency is we have $32 trillion of debt, $180 trillion in unfunded liabilities. We're a corrupt cabal in Washington, D.C. The world has been abused by this one central, cantankerous, corrupt entity that operates the world reserve currency and tells everybody what they have to do as if they're morally superior to the rest of the world. And that entire system is dead. It's dead. And yet, if you'll go to the media, if people go and listen to all the wizards of smart from Washington, D.C., that maybe have a DC centric worldview, they will tell you, they'll confirm for you the loss of the world reserve currency status is the worst thing that could ever happen in the world. How are we going to engage in the wars of our choice? How are we going to manufacture COVID vaccines and stick everybody in the world with it if we lose our status? I mean, listen to these people.
It's
They think the center of the universe and all moral values and virtue is in Washington, D.C. And if we lose that club status with the club king dollar status, oh my God, it's the worst thing in the world. No, it's actually the best thing in the world.
exactly. That's what
It's
I'm
the
excited
best
about.
thing in the. We have to decentralize. We have to turn the pyramid with all-seeing, concentrated eye on the top, all the damn way upside down, hammer it into the ground so the bottom of the pyramid is level the world over, instead of the pyramid being at the top. And these, how do we think 2% of the people control 95% of the world's wealth?
And it's not even,
Unless it was an intentionally designed system to have 2% of the people control. And yet, so what am I happy about? Their house of cards is falling apart. There's going to be the single greatest wealth transfer in the history of mankind. We're going to a fair and level playing field. And if you were to ask me what the true story is as to why they hate President Trump so much, is he came down the escalator like a guy, little 14-year-old kid came out of the fields. He picked up a rock and he hit Goliath right there in the head and took his head off. Trump is David and Goliath is the central bank, the Federal Reserve.
yeah,
That is the center of power that rapes, ravages, pills, and kills and destroys with concentrated power, demanding everybody obey that analogous Goliath. Trump came down the escalator to level the playing field so every nation that has people in it, their $20 is just as damn valuable as our $20.
yeah,
Their rights are just as fair as our, their labor is worth the same labor as our labor. We're going to have a level playing field where we can interoperate in a fair and transparent level. We're not having this king dollar crap anymore. And when he came down the escalator, they had to take his head off.
yeah,
This is going to be either we win or you win, but there is no tie. And it's either we win and keep going breathing, or you win and we die.
yeah,
And his system level the playing field. He says this all the time from a very brave standpoint. Hey, it's not me they're after. I'm just standing in the way.
yeah,
It's you they're coming after because they don't want you thinking like I'm thinking or knowing what I know or adopting the values of the belief that this whole world ought to be treated with one level of fairness and standard. This whole, why do we get to go have $8 lattes and $4,000 MacBooks when other people that are making them are making $800 a month?
yeah, yeah,
Can't eat and don't have shoes
totally.
because this system is perverted.
Mm-hmm.
We have to level the playing field and let everybody that is mankind, humankind, have an equal, loving opportunity to find their purpose and make their way without a concentration of power that bastardizes the whole world. What
Yeah,
I'm excited about is, and even people that don't look, here's the thing too. Even people that hate Trump's guts, or anything the man ever says because they believed everything they've been told hook, line, and sinker, are going to be blessed by a brand new economy that's going to be what the rivers are going to run gold. They're going to, everything is going to be better than we probably ever. Doesn't mean we're not going to have to work hard.
yeah,
Doesn't mean that there aren't going to be lots of jobs out there for people to do. But the wealth that has been stored up by the wicked for 2,000 years the world over is about to be redistributed to the righteous.
mm-hmm.
And it's going to flow through the streets of every nation and every city and every zip code in the world in a fair and equitable way. And it's going to be a beautiful thing. And that's the last thing the central bankers that control all. Has anybody ever seen the Rothschild on the cover of Time or People magazine because they're worth $812 trillion? Have we ever seen a puff piece? And has Oprah ever entered? Tell us, what do you do with your 812 trillion, Mr. Rothschild? I mean, why are we doing puff pieces on these folks that have such an insane level of power and control in the world that it makes your hair hurt to
Yeah,
think about it? But people are starving in countries all over the world while one family has $812 trillion worth of wealth.
that I'm telling you
How's that possible?
that I'm excited for the same reasons you are, because of the ability to really question everything, to get curious, and to have the courage, primarily to have the courage to move through my own bullshit, to have the
Right,
courage to not believe my thoughts. Because one of the things that I say all the time to my students, just because you believe something doesn't mean it's true.
right.
And to be able to not believe my own thoughts had me begin to question everything. And I mean, there are so many different topics that this can move from. What I'm excited about is having three children, and of course my little grandson, but my kids, they work hard. I mean, these are three hardworking humans, adults. They don't like me calling them kids, but adults out there doing something incredible, barely making ends meet.
Right.
And it wasn't like that when I was their age. It was just not like that at all. So I'm super excited that finally this inequity, this and it's not that it's unequal because it just worked its way that way. As you have said, this has been deliberately planned from way back to control humanity deliberately by keeping us from knowing that we are each the magnificent child of God,
Amen.
knowing the truth of our power from, I mean, there are so many different, like I said, there are so many different topics because we have been conditioned into forgetting who we are. So
Amen.
what is left? You're confused, you don't know who you are, you attach yourself to anything that is shiny, that promises something, whatever that might be. And to be able to have that house of cards, the media, Hollywood, the banking system, the medical system, the education system, the religious systems, and
The
so many,
food system.
the food system, the air system, the travel system, everything is about to get turned on its head, rightfully so, so that
Yes.
we can see how we have been so conditioned. When probably the thing that I'm most excited about, it's going to take time, but when we have the ability to come to know who we are, happy people will not be hurting people. That means crime is going to go away. Happy people help other people. That means stealing, robbing, cheating, lying, all those things are going to go away. Happy people are healthy people. That means that we're going to get back to nature. We're going to get back to wanting foods that are grown not just organically somewhere, but in your own backyard. Happy people are helpful people. That means we're going to serve in the government. We're going to be by the people, for the people. It's going to be a form of representing for the greater good of all. So it might take us, I don't know, maybe, our founding fathers probably didn't think it would take us 70 years before we finally got it, or 50, or however many it's been, before we finally got the importance of honoring the Declaration of Independence. But
Well,
it
well,
another 100.
and let me, there's de Tocqueville wrote a book. He came over here after we won the war from England, and he wrote a book. And his conclusion was he found that America is great because America is good,
Mm,
and people were good. And you just said, represent. When we're out in the community and we're serving other people and we're growing our own food and we're helping other people and we're working the community, we represent, re rep represent is the
mm,
word to represent.
mhm,
When we have God in us, in our spiritual essence, when we know that the vine and the branch are connected as one, then we are representing the God within us in the community. We
mm.
become that salt and light by representing. Now, let me show you a different way of how they've perverted this. we don't know our rights anymore. We don't have a constitution. You can read the Constitution in 45 minutes, the Bill of Rights, and go in. You should be able to go before a judge and say, he stole my cow. No, I didn't. Yes, I did. My wife saw him and she saw it. Okay, I did it. Case closed, right? No. Can't do that anymore. You have to have this private lawyer, attorney that went to a 3-year bar school to get exam, to pledge an allegiance to a bar association, to then represent us in that court jurisdiction, because we don't have the authority or the license or the certificate to represent ourselves. We have to be represented by a guy in the club or a girl in the club to pass the bar, to stand before the judge in the black robe, to speak a language we don't understand because we didn't go to law school. What happened to our Bill of Rights in 45 minutes in common law? What happened to our ability to represent ourselves instead of having to be represented by an attorney? So the opposite of that is when we have the Holy Spirit and love and God, and we understand that we are spiritual beings and that's our essence, then we represent the essence of what's in here out there.
Yeah. And I believe that when we question our beliefs, it's like in the Matrix, all of those things just begin to dissolve, and the goodness is already inside of us. The seed of God's goodness is within each and every one of us. I believe that our work is to undo the shell that blocks it.
Yes.
And that shell is made up of all these beliefs, these lies, this BS, belief systems, bullshit, and believing that are not true. And once we find the courage to break through our own mind-made prison and accept that we really truly are magnificent, we are, every single one of us, wanted, needed, important in this world, and come back into the truth of who we are, it's going to be an amazing world. Now, in the meantime, we need to prepare ourselves, brace ourselves, because it's not going to be pretty. My prediction is a good year or two of discomfort before we're on the other side, because we literally are going to have to battle. And I'm so grateful for the courageous people who are going up against this Goliath, because it's taking quite a few around the world to orchestrate this complete shattering of this illusion almost at one time. Not a small feat. But clearly, I trust God is in all of it, in every bit of it. And the world is going to really be what it was intended to be, heaven on earth, the kingdom of heaven, not only as within, but so without. We are moving back to what God gave us as his beautiful world. I go back to the Course in Miracles, because the Course in Miracles says the world that we see, the ego is ego made. It's people who don't know God, but the world that God created is eternal, and they're waiting for us. All we need to do is be willing to have only one authority, and that be God. So we are guided by love. We're guided by truth, transparency, honesty, integrity, collaboration, co-creation, cooperation, all of those beautiful things that are really ultimately natural inside of us. But we have been conditioned out of that, and nobody to blame, in my opinion.
Programmed, drugged, conditioned, trained, our egos have been fed, our bodies have been chemicalized, the bread and circuses get thrown to us. We want to go, watch the football game, and I'm guilty as charged, all of those belief systems. As long as we keep it at each other this way, and we don't question that way,
Yeah.
either their false authority or seek his authority. Mm-hmm. They just want us to be obedient, fight with each other, compete, work your ass off. If you're really successful, thank you very much, we'll take half. And if you have any losses, so sad for you. Pretty good gig if you can set it up that way, right?
It really has been a good gig. It really has been. We've all been great actors playing crazy parts, but how can people find you? Where can they go and connect with you?
Well, my website is cool. It's spelled KUWL .show. SHOW. So cool.show. And all of my social media, my Substack, if you want to go to there, you can go to robcunningham.substack.com and find a lot of my writings and posts there. But at cool.show, you can, at the bottom, you can find a link tree and it's got all of my social media properties on there.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for having this conversation. I mean, we can go on so many different tangents. That's what's so exciting for me, to have a conversation with somebody who loves God, who's courageous enough to question our government and question our everything. So thank you. It's just such an honor to have this opportunity. And then, of course, if anybody wants to know about me, lineorlando.com, you can find me there, or YouTube. Everything is Laina Orlando. That's it. Thank you, Rob, and have a wonderful vacation with your family. And please give your lovely bride a hug from me and tell her I'm so grateful for this warriors group that you guys created, because I found a home there and I miss you all.
Thank you. We miss you too. Come and visit us. And thank you again. I'm honored that you invited me on your show.
Yeah. Take care.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.